There are bacteria living in all corners of the Earth, even in the frigid cold of the Arctic. The bacteria that live here must withstand the harsh cold temperatures and have adapted to thrive in these conditions. These organisms, those that grow best between the temperatures of -20 and 10 degrees Celsius, are called psychrophiles. But because they have adapted to live in the cold, they have lost the ability to withstand higher temperatures that could occur with climate change. The Arctic has experienced heat waves for the past few years and seen temperatures that can be as much as 20 degrees Celsius above average. When the temperatures begin to get this warm, the psychrophiles that live here cannot function and will begin to die off. A large portion of these psychrophiles are cyanobacteria that are photosynthetic and produce oxygen as a byproduct. The disappearance of these bacteria could lead to a diminishing amount of oxygen in the atmosphere, which is a pretty important thing to us.
Many studies show that our world has been increasing in terms of the amount of CO2 within our atmosphere due to climate change. Studies show that elevated CO2 levels have a positive influence on the abundance of arbuscular and ectomycorrhizal fungi. This is due to the fact that these organisms rely on their symbiotic relationships in order to survive. Plants must take in CO2 to survive, and therefore the more CO2 they intake, the more likely they are to thrive. When the plants are thriving, they are able to benefit the fungi within their symbiotic relationship, which allows the fungi to thrive, which then repeats the process. The microorganisms within the relationship to the plant colonize the rhizosphere, which is the portion of the soil attached to the root surface. As the CO2 increases, it leads to an increase in C allocation in the root zone. This will eventually cause increased growth in the rhizosphere and in the internal hyphae. Both of these increases the root biomass from the microorganisms experiencing increased growth. Although these studies show that increased CO2 can be a positive thing for microorganisms and the plants they are attached to, they also touch on the fact that hot temperatures and longer droughts have negative effects on the plants and the microorganisms.
Climate change has had major impacts on the microbial world that in return has severely affected our human lives. One of the reasons being disease-causing pathogens. As the global climate changes, average global temperatures are rising and the frequency of extreme weather events is growing, with impacts on the distribution and viability of all life forms. We are not aware of how the geographic ranges of vector-borne diseases, those diseases caused by parasites, bacteria, and viruses transmitted to humans via an intermediate host organism, are being influenced by climate change. However, malaria is a vector-borne disease known to be most sensitive to long-term climate change. It is caused by parasites of the genus Plasmodium, which is one of 4 species out of 100 known to infect humans. It is historically found in temperate areas such as the U.S. A research team at Stanford University overestimated the optimum optimum temperature of this organism to be 32 degrees Celsius, when it was actually found to be 25 degrees Celsius, proving that with climate change and temperature increase, malaria transmission would also increase everywhere. One disease for which there is great interest and concern regarding climate change links is Lyme disease. Lyme disease is known to be caused by bacteria Borrelia burgdorferi, transmitted to humans by the bite of an infected black-legged tick of the genus Ixodes. Lyme disease spreading ticks are now well established in Canada. The limiting climatic factor is temperature. However, the climate has been warm enough for the ticks to be able to complete their life cycle fast enough, meaning that the ticks are beginning to grow at faster rates, causing increased Lyme disease diagnoses. As the global climate changes, its effect on rainfall patterns caused increased rainfall and rising sea levels. This leads to the increase in frequency of floods, which has direct correlation with increased risk of waterborne diseases. One such disease is known as cholera, caused by bacterium Vibrio cholera, which thrives in warmer temperature water. As a result of rain pattern changes, we are at risk of multiple new infectious diseases, all due to the abilities of microorganisms to adapt and thrive in new climates. As a general rule of thumb, it can be concluded that our ever-changing climate has drastic effects on the growth of microorganisms, which in return can severely affect the world around us. Thank you.